The bell rang. Same tone, same timing, just a little past noon. It had hung on that porch for as long as I could remember. Same rust-streaked hook, same chipped handle. Every ring meant food was ready, and no one dared show up late. I was already halfway down the stairs before the echo finished settling across the fields. Mira was already praying when I reached the table. Eyes shut, lips pressed into her usual tight frown, like she was mad at God, but trying to sound grateful. Gregory sat across from her, spooning mashed potatoes like it was a task for survival, not a meal. Elias, the youngest, didn't look up. He never did anymore. I sat where I always sat. At the end, not because it was my spot, but because no one ever asked me to move. As I reached for the mashed potatoes, Gregory slapped my hand. "Let your mother finish," he said. I pulled my hand back, looked at Mira. She kept praying. No one mentioned the bruise still yellowing under my eye from last week. No one ever did. Gregory hadn't spoken more than a grunt to me since I told him I applied to Missouri Tech. Mira opened her eyes and ended with a whispered, "Amen." Then finally smiled. The tight kind she reserved for dinner guests and church folk. The food moved around the table, slow, polite. Elias passed the gravy like he was carrying glass. I cleared my throat. No one looked up. "I got in," I said, voice low. Missouri Tech accepted me. Gregory's fork hit his plate like a gavel. Loud. Final. Mira blinked fast. Her hand froze around her glass. "That's wonderful," she said, voice falsely light. "Let's pray on it." Gregory didn't blink. "We didn't raise you to chase the world." Mira nodded. "God's already laid a path for you, Thorn. You just have to walk it." "I don't want that path," I said. "I want my own." Silence followed. Mira looked down. Gregory stared through me. Elias chewed slower. "I already accepted," I said. No one moved. After lunch, I took my plate to the sink. Mira was already there, sleeves rolled, washing the same bowl over and over like it might eventually reveal answers. I stood beside her, drying plates. Gregory walked in, shut the door behind him. No footsteps, just the click of the lock. "You think college is gonna fix you?" he said. I didn't answer. "You think you're smarter than this family?" Still, I stayed quiet. My hands trembled around the dish towel, but I didn't drop it. "Answer me." "I don't think anything," I said. "I just know I'm leaving." Gregory moved before I saw it, grabbed the back of my neck, slammed my head down against the sink. The sound cracked, loud, sickening. Metal met bone. Mira screamed behind him, but didn't stop him. Elias cried from the hallway. Blood ran down the porcelain. Gregory stepped back. Mira pressed a towel to my head. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. "Pray," she whispered. "Just pray, baby." She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't call for help. I looked up at her, dazed, blood in my eyes, pain echoing through my skull. She wasn't horrified. She was disappointed. She wasn't shaken. She was controlled. She wasn't angry at him. She was ashamed of me. I stumbled to my room. Vision blurred, but I didn't trip. The door shut behind me, and I leaned against it like it could hold back the world. I thought of Livia, my sister. I thought about the way her voice cracked the night she said, "They'll never let us leave." She'd cried once, not because she was hurt, but because no one came when she was. I looked at the sink again in my mind. Same porcelain, same shape. Had she bled there too? Mira had cleaned that sink, like she'd clean everything. Pain didn't last in that house. It got scrubbed, sanitized, deleted. I lay back on my bed, pressing ice wrapped in an old dish towel against my temple. She hadn't even asked if I was in pain. "They'd rather protect their version of God than their actual son," I whispered. The bell rang outside again. I didn't move. Let it ring. Let them wait. I wasn't hungry anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling, waiting for the pain to dull or the world to shift. Neither did. But I whispered something into the dark, just to hear it aloud. "They'll never stop." "Not unless I do." The sink was clean. Too clean. I blinked, still on the tile, cheek pressed against the floor. Blood was dried under the rim of the drain, barely visible now, like it had never been there. My temple pulsed, dull and deep. The air smelled like bleach. Mira was kneeling beside me. She didn't meet my eyes. She pressed a cold, soaked cloth against the side of my head, then dabbed some antiseptic on the cut without a word. No panic, no urgency, just rhythm, like a chore. Pain is God's way of testing loyalty, she said softly, like a nurse repeating scripture to herself instead of to her son. She reached into her apron and pulled out a small Bible, pressed it into my hands. Read Psalms 94 tonight. Still no eye contact. I looked at the sink again. The rag she'd used was already soaking in bleach water, not a single drop left to prove what had happened. Elias peeked from the hallway. His face vanished the second I turned my head. Mira stood, dusted off her skirt, and walked out. The door clicked softly behind her, lock turning with practiced ease. It wasn't the first time she'd done this, probably not the second either. Later, I heard a knock at the front door. Not rushed, polite. Mira's voice, muffled, answering it. Then the familiar cadence of Ms. Eleanor, the neighbor. Her voice always lifted at the end of questions. A minute passed, maybe two. Then another knock, this one heavier. Male voice this time, Deputy Carl Myers. I didn't move from the stairwell, just sat halfway up, one arm braced against the railing. My head still ached. The towel Mira had given me was turning pink. Gregory greeted the deputy like they were old army buddies. Come on in, Carl. Mira made sweet tea. I heard the screen door creak open, followed by a chuckle. Heard a ruckus earlier. Thought I'd check in. You know how these small towns get when someone hears a bang. Gregory laughed. Just a family moment. Boys testing boundaries. Better now than when they're 30, Carl replied. I saw them settle into the living room through the rails. Mira handed him a glass, full to the brim. Carl took a sip and let out an approving sigh. Man, I tell you, this is real sweet tea. My wife doesn't even get it right. Mira laughed quietly. It's the good kind of sugar. We use scripture and syrup in this house. I stood, started to step down. Gregory noticed. His eyes flashed. Warning. I froze. Carl didn't see it, or pretended not to. You're lucky, Thorne, the deputy said, looking right at me. Most boys don't have a father willing to keep 'em straight. You hold on to that. I didn't answer. He didn't wait for one. They laughed again, loud enough to cover everything. No questions were asked. No report was written. That night, I locked my bedroom door and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keys before typing. What to do if your parent hits you? Every result started the same. Call 911. But they'd already been here. Had sweet tea. Laughed. Called me lucky. I typed out an email to Mrs. Delaney, the school counselor. I wrote about the bruises, the silence, the prayer, the sink. But before I could hit send, I saw the Bible Mira had given me on the desk. Psalms 94. I deleted the email. From my window, I could still see Carl and Gregory on the porch swing, talking like no one else existed. The bell from earlier still hung in the background, untouched, untarnished. The world isn't broken, I muttered. It was built this way. I opened a folder on my laptop and created a new one. Insurance. Then I started saving. Photos, notes, recordings, anything I could gather without making noise, because if I couldn't speak it, I'd keep it. Dinner came and went. No one called me down. The bell didn't ring. It didn't need to. I ate crackers from the drawer and sat at my desk, notebook open. Through the wall, I heard Mira say to Elias, "Your brother's being dramatic again. Pray for him." I flipped to the first blank page, wrote the date, the time, what was said, what was done, how it felt, where it hurt. Then I wrote, "If I can't speak it, I'll document it." I slid the notebook beneath the floorboard by my bed, in the space where I used to hide candy. Now it held something bitter instead. The house felt too quiet, too practiced, like even the shadows knew their lines. That night, I dreamt of running, not screaming, just moving, fast and alone. My feet were bare, my breath steady. Right before sleep pulled me under, I lifted the notebook again and added one final line. Next time it happens, I'll be ready. I woke up late, not by choice. My body felt like it had been dragged across the yard. The side of my head still hummed, a low, pulsing throb behind my right eye. The bell never rang. No knock on the door. No sound of dishes in the sink. No voice telling me to hurry. Just quiet. Too much of it. I pushed off the blanket and sat up slow. The clock read 11:42 a.m. Elias would be at school by now. I listened for Gregory's boots, Mira's steps, nothing. When people disappear just long enough, your mind starts giving them the benefit of the doubt. Not because they deserve it, but because you need the silence to mean something less cruel. I made my way down the stairs. The kitchen was untouched. Cold coffee sat full in the pot. No dirty mugs, no smells from the stove. On the way back up, I paused by the stairwell closet. Something poked out from the shadows near the bottom shelf. I crouched, pulled it loose, a stack of manila envelopes, unopened. Labeled Family Trust Documents. I didn't open them, just stared for a moment too long before sliding them back. In my room, I sat at the edge of my bed and opened the drawer where I kept my school notes. It was slightly off-center. Again, I was sure I'd closed it all the way, and I started to realize maybe this wasn't new. I dropped to my knees and pulled the blanket aside, dug under the mattress until my knuckles scraped wood. That's when I felt it. Thin, leather, and forgotten by someone who didn't expect to be found. I pulled it out slow, a journal, worn edges, stitched corners. Livia's name wasn't on the front, but I didn't need it to be. The handwriting was hers. The entries weren't long. Some were just a date and a sentence. But they built something no one had dared say out loud. She wrote about feeling watched, about Mira's prayer circles and the cleansing she was told to undergo. About being told over and over again, God's still working on you, whenever she questioned anything. One page made my throat close. If I disappear, it's not because I walked away, it's because no one let me stay. I sat with that line longer than I meant to. They did this to her, and they'll do it to me. I ran my fingers over the words. The ink had smudged from where her hand must have trembled writing it. Rage didn't explode in me. It grew, like a storm not rushing in but rolling slowly, steady and unstoppable. I got up, needing air. The closet was nearest. I pulled open the panel to grab my hoodie. That's when I saw it. A tiny black dot near the corner. At first, I thought it was mold or a screw. It wasn't. It was a lens. I leaned in, heart thudding, and pulled the panel back farther. The device was small, tucked just right, wired clean, not slapped together, professional, or at least practiced. It faced the bed. My bed. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I thought about every night I'd undressed, every word I'd whispered into my pillow, every moment I thought was mine. And then I remembered Mira's words on my 16th birthday. It's good to stay modest, even when you're alone. Modesty honors the Lord. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I just stood still until the anger stopped sounding like thunder and started sounding like resolve. I took the camera down carefully, unplugged the wire, wrapped it in one of the socks from my drawer, and buried it in the back of the closet. Then I turned on my old laptop. It whirred like it had arthritis, but it still worked. I opened a new folder, named it, Just in Case. I scanned the pages of Livia's journal one by one, took pictures of the camera, recorded a video of the wiring, documented everything, and then I hit record on the webcam. My name is Thorne Carrick. If you're watching this, I didn't run away. Someone made me disappear. My voice didn't shake until the second sentence. I clicked save. Later that night, I heard footsteps pause outside my door. A knock. Soft. Familiar. We need to talk in the morning, Mira said. I didn't answer. I looked at the ceiling. No red lights. I whispered back, barely audible. Tomorrow, I start watching them back. I was up before the sun touched the windows. The air felt heavier than usual, like the house itself was holding its breath. I made a cup of coffee, weak, bitter, the kind Mira called water pretending to be something. I sat at the table and opened my email, half hoping the college had followed up. Some miracle, maybe. Something to say, "We saw what happened. We believe you." What I saw instead was a message from Missouri Tech. "Your withdrawal has been processed. We wish you the best." My stomach dropped. I refreshed the page. Refreshed again. Same result. I checked the trash folder. There it was. An email sent from my account. 3:12 a.m. 3 days ago. I was asleep. Or I thought I was. I barely remembered anything from that night except the pounding in my head and the metallic taste of silence. Someone had used my login. Someone had made it look like I gave up. I didn't just lose college, I lost the proof I ever wanted it. Breakfast was quiet. Mira moved like nothing had changed. She hummed a hymn while scooping eggs onto our plates. Gregory skimmed the newspaper, muttering about politics. Elias sat stiffly, eyes on his food, not me. I waited until the plates were halfway empty before I said it. "You withdrew my college application." Mira paused, then smiled like a kindergarten teacher correcting a mistake. "We prayed on it. It wasn't the right time for that kind of pressure." Gregory didn't even look up. "College doesn't save souls. Discipline does." I held up the printed email. This was mine to decide. "Lower your tone," Mira warned. "You're scaring your brother." Elias didn't lift his eyes. He just kept chewing. Slower. I placed the printout gently on the table, directly in front of Mira. She didn't touch it. She stood up, walked calmly to the fireplace, and grabbed the poker. Without saying another word, she opened the hearth, leaned in, and fed the paper to the flame. It curled, blackened, disappeared in seconds. "We don't let Satan's distractions live in this house," she said. I watched it burn. Not because I couldn't stop her. I could have. But because watching it go up in smoke meant something else entirely. That was the last physical proof I had. Gone. By early afternoon, I'd walked to the public library, used one of the computers at the back. The room smelled like mildew and forgotten things. I logged into a fresh email, encrypted every message. I sent Missouri Tech a photo of my bruised face. Attached copies of Livia's journal pages, added a line to the counselor, "If I vanish, look here." Then I printed everything again, slipped the copies into a thrift store paperback, the kind no one would ever steal. That evening, I slid it beneath a pew cushion at Wednesday night service. If home is where the hurt lives, then the truth needed somewhere else to survive. Dinner came, silent and stale. Mira leaned in close enough for her breath to graze my ear. "God sees rebellion in the heart long before the mouth speaks it." Gregory cleared his throat, spoke to no one in particular. "Livia thought she was bigger than this house, too. Thought she knew better." He paused, sipped from his glass. "Look how that ended." The words didn't hit like fists. They hit like history, rewritten, rehearsed, recycled. Even Elias stopped chewing. I stared at them. Not because I was stunned, but because I finally understood what this was. They weren't lying out of fear. They believed what they were saying. And worse, they thought it made them holy. That's how legacies survive in places like this. You don't have to hide the fire if you convince people it's the light. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I walked to the fireplace. Ash still lined the grate. I opened the screen, pulled a folded note from my pocket, and laid it gently among the embers. "This lie won't survive the next fire." I moved through the day like a ghost tied to the floorboards, vacuumed the hallway, folded laundry I didn't wear, wiped down a counter that was already clean. Every time Mira asked for something, a dish towel, a rag, to take the trash, I answered the same. "Yes, ma'am." She didn't smile. Didn't frown either. Just moved through the house like nothing had ever gone wrong. Like the smell of burned paper from the hearth 2 days ago never happened. Gregory was outside, carving something in the garage with a chisel. I passed by once and caught sight of it. The words, "Obedience is protection," burned into a slab of cedar. They were resetting the narrative. fixing the stage, pretending the smoke in the walls had just been fog. That afternoon, Elias trailed me down the hall. He looked small, tighter in his skin. "Are you going to leave like Livia did?" he asked. My throat tightened. "What makes you ask that?" "Because Mom said you'll let the devil take me too." I stopped walking. He didn't cry, didn't pout, just said it like it was a fact he was supposed to understand. That night, Mira knocked on my door and offered hot cocoa. She never brought hot cocoa. The cup steamed, untouched in her hands. "Come downstairs," she said. "Let's talk." The living room lights were low. She sat on the couch like we were reminiscing, not unspoken enemies. "You were such a good baby," she started. "Quiet, obedient, always slept through the night." I waited. "But lately," she touched her chest, "the enemy has a grip on your thoughts." She looked at me then, fully, directly. "If you go," she said, "Elias will have to take your place." I felt like my lungs stopped. "What does that mean?" She tilted her head. "Do you think he can handle what you've put on us?" I gripped the armrest. "What did you make Livia handle for me?" She didn't answer, didn't blink. "Some burdens," she said, "are meant to purify." I stood up and walked away before I said something I couldn't take back. In my room, I opened the notebook again and wrote the words slowly. This time, I won't be the one left behind. I pulled the shoebox from under the bed. Inside, $300 in bills, a flash drive, the printed journal pages, and a faded t-shirt that used to belong to Livia. Her name was stitched inside the collar. I folded it carefully, placed it at the bottom of my bag. Packed only what fit, nothing more. Clothes, toothbrush, charger, a printed copy of the email from Missouri Tech, and the broken camera. I slid it in last, tucked against the side pocket like it deserved to witness the next chapter. From the kitchen, I heard it. The bell, same as always. But when I looked outside, no one was there. I zipped my backpack and whispered, "The ghost still rings it." Sometime after midnight, I stood at the back door barefoot, the floor cold. My pulse steady. Elias's room was cracked open. I pushed it gently. He was curled up under the covers, Bible clutched to his chest like a stuffed animal. I left a note taped to his nightstand, short, honest. "I'm not leaving you. I'm trying to stop them from doing to you what they did to us." Then I stepped out the side gate, the hinges groaning just once. Behind the house, the cornfield opened wide under the moon. I moved fast, heart quiet. The stalks brushed against my shoulders, tall and dry. I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. Every step felt lighter. My phone stayed off. I didn't need a map. I just needed a way. By the highway, I waited near a culvert beneath the bridge. One truck passed, didn't stop. That was fine. The gravel pressed into my palms as I sat, arms wrapped around my bag. The sky turned purple, then blue. I pulled out Livia's journal from inside the bag, flipped to the last page. One sentence was underlined in blue. "Freedom never knocks. You have to run to it." The road curved ahead, lined with cracked fences and dew-heavy grass. I didn't know how far I'd walked. My shoes were soaked through and my legs moved like I owed the next step something. I hadn't slept. Couldn't. By the time I saw the gate at Fort Banner, my vision had gone spotty. The morning sun barely warmed the gravel. I tried waving. Once, maybe twice, but my hand dropped before it made it above my head. Then I fell. Didn't feel the ground hit me, just a sharp scrape on my palms and the sting of air pulling at my lip where it split. Someone was shouting. Footsteps. The world tilted. "Don't send me back," I mumbled. That's the last thing I remember before everything went dark. When I came to, I was inside a tent. Canvas walls, the faint smell of rubbing alcohol and plastic. A man in uniform crouched beside me, holding out a granola bar and a bottle of water. Private Deacon Wyatt. He didn't ask questions, just said, "You're safe now, son." I nodded. Didn't trust my voice yet. He handed me a blanket, kept his tone low, measured. "Whatever happened, you made it out. That counts for something." I must have fallen asleep again because the next time I looked up, He was sitting at a small folding table, speaking quietly on the phone. "Not law enforcement," I heard him say. "I need youth protective, quietly." Later that afternoon, when the dizziness cleared, he handed me his phone to check in online. I logged into one of my old accounts. The first thing I saw was a post from the Millers Hollow Baptist Church. "Pray for our fallen son. We believe he'll recover from the demons of addiction." They said I was in rehab. A flyer had already been made. Sunday prayer circle. Theme: redemption and recovery. "They made my survival their pity story," I said out loud. Deacon glanced over. "That about you?" I didn't speak, just opened my bag and handed him Livia's journal. Then the photo of the camera. He read quietly. Jaw tightened. When he finished, he folded the paper slowly. "That's enough. You don't go back." I didn't ask what he meant by that. I just nodded. I asked him to drop me off at the library in the next town over. Not a shelter, not a foster home, a place with computers, privacy. He looked at me a long time, then nodded once. "You're the calmest runaway I've ever met," he said. "Scariest kind." At the library, I printed everything. Pages from the journal, photos, screenshots. Every file I'd backed up in that folder marked just in case. I took the manila envelope and walked it across the street to a youth legal aid center. Didn't leave my name. Just wrote on the front, "Carrick family, eyes open." They'd know what to do. Eventually, I went back to the library and uploaded every file to a new cloud folder. Changed the name, pseudonym, encrypted everything. Not because I was ready to expose them, because I knew they'd try to erase the truth again. And this time, I was going to get ahead of them. "If I disappear again," I typed in the note, "send this to Ms. Becca Dean, CPS." That was it. In the lounge of the youth center, I sat with my back to the wall, watching kids talk about video games and weekend trips like they weren't breathing borrowed air. Two teens sat a few feet from me, whispering. One of them pointed without making it obvious. "Is that the Carrick kid? I heard he OD'd." I turned my head slowly, looked them both in the eye. "No," I said. "I survived something worse." They didn't say anything after that. I walked to the public computer, logged in anonymously, opened a blank post on a survivor forum, typed, "When your story gets told without you, you either reclaim it or let it kill you." No names, no blame, just truth. I ended with, "I'm not missing, I'm remembering." Posted it, closed the tab. They'd see it soon. Maybe not today, but they would. And this time, they'd know I wasn't alone when the story changed. As I stepped outside, the wind caught my jacket. Church bells rang from somewhere across town. Not the lunch bell, not from home, but the sound still pulled something out of me. Then the phone in my pocket buzzed. Number unknown. One message. "You lied about us. We're coming to get you." Sunday morning, I woke to the buzz of my phone, not the sound of bells or hollow prayers. I hadn't planned to check the community board, but habit is a stubborn thing. One swipe, and there it was, my face. That same photo they used on the church's Easter pamphlet when I was 10. Wide-eyed, grinning, head tilted just enough to seem innocent. The caption read, "Pray for Thorn Carrick. He's fallen into darkness." The comments followed quickly. "Tragic. Such a promising boy." "We warned Gregory this would happen if he left the boy ungrounded." College corrupts faster than cocaine. And just like that, they'd taken the truth I'd built and buried it under a narrative dressed in scripture. They made me the sinner, the failure, the broken branch of their perfect tree. I stared at the screen until the coffee went cold, then forwarded the post to Deacon with one line. "You said you'd believe me. Can you still?" It didn't take him long. He called back within the hour. His voice was clipped, tighter than usual. He skipped pleasantries. "I knew your sister," he said. "Livia, Fort Banner. She came through with a junior ROTC tour 2 years ago." My breath caught. She was different, quiet, but sharp. Said she wanted out. Told me, "They'll never let me leave without a funeral." I didn't get it then. I do now. There was a pause, then a ping, a photo, Livia in uniform, hair pulled back, a faint smile that didn't touch her eyes, a bruise near her wrist, barely visible beneath her sleeve. "She didn't disappear, Thorne," Deacon said. "She was disappeared." I whispered. She was planning her way out, and they killed the map. For the first time in weeks, I let myself cry. Not because I felt broken, because I'd finally seen where her footprints had stopped and where mine needed to keep going. By late afternoon, I was standing outside the community center. Career Day banners flapped in the wind. The building buzzed with speakers, students, and the stink of catered hot dogs. Gregory stood on the main stage, holding a microphone like it was a sermon. "Discipline saves," he said. "When the world tells our children lies, we lost one child to ambition. We almost lost another." Mira sat at the back, nodding like she hadn't lit the match. I walked in and didn't stop. Straight to the front, pulled a printed photo of Livia from my folder, held it up, handed it to the organizer, a woman in her 50s who wore a cross too big for her chest. "This is my sister," I said. "She didn't run, she prepared. And they stopped her." The room stilled. Even the hum of the overhead lights felt louder. Gregory's smile faltered. Mira clutched her scarf like it might cover more than her neck. I looked at the crowd, eyes meeting eyes. If we let people rewrite the stories of the ones who can't defend themselves, then we deserve every lie that lives longer than the truth. No one clapped. No one moved. But they heard me. Later, a teacher brushed past and whispered, "I believed them for years. I'm sorry." A student told me, "I didn't know she was real." That evening, Elias called from a borrowed phone. He didn't say hello. "They're angry," he said, "but I saw the picture. She looked free." I didn't say much, just good. Back in the library, I opened my laptop, clicked into the cloud folder, the Carrick files, every document, every scan, every photo, uploaded. They could scream in the pulpit. They could write their own bulletins, but they couldn't delete the truth now. The screen blinked. Notification. Password reset attempted. Source, Miller's Hollow Church office. I smiled. They're scared. The hearing room felt colder than it should have been for late spring. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the smell of floor wax clung to the walls like old guilt. I sat between two empty chairs. One belonged to Becca Dean from CPS. The other stayed vacant until Gregory and Mira arrived, perfectly timed, perfectly composed. Gregory held a thick folder. Mira clutched a Bible like it had something new to say. The school board members shuffled paper and cleared throats. When called to speak, Gregory stood first. He laid out discipline records with careful pauses and firm hands. A behavioral report, a list of supposed infractions, a written confession about funds missing from the youth donation box. Each document on church letterhead, neatly typed. Signed. Mira sat still, but her eyes darted toward me whenever someone said violent history or theft. Becca leaned forward slowly. "You're saying he stole from the church youth fund?" "Yes," Gregory said. "He confessed to it in counseling. We've kept it quiet out of love." I didn't move, didn't blink. When they finished, I opened my backpack, pulled out a flash drive, and passed it to Becca. "I'd like you to see when those documents were created, and what software was used." The room quieted. I also included photos of the youth fund ledger from the actual dates. No discrepancy. No theft. Becca plugged it into her laptop. We all waited. When she looked up, her voice was clipped. "These documents were backdated, created 6 days ago, at the Carrick home IP address." Mira started to cry softly, like it hurt her to be misunderstood. Gregory just stared at me. Becca asked, "Why would they fabricate this?" I didn't raise my voice. "Because they don't fear God," I said. "They fear becoming irrelevant." I left before the meeting ended. Outside, I handed Becca something else. A worn Bible. Livia's. I found it behind the cabinet in the old nursery wing. Inside were pages marked with colored tabs, underlined verses, and notes scribbled in the margins. One stood out. "You can't purify fire with more fire. You walk through it, and remember." Becca flipped through slowly, stopping at a list of names. Half were crossed out. "She tried to reach people," I said. Some never answered, others stayed quiet. She closed the Bible gently and placed it in her bag without saying anything more. They burned her story, I told her, but she buried the ashes where no one thought to look. That afternoon, I sat at the library, opened the blog. A new message waited, screenshot attached, a church bulletin. Pray for Thorn Carrick. He was once caught stealing sacred funds, but the Lord redeems. Their last card, I didn't cry. I didn't type in all caps. I didn't even get angry. I took the screenshot, uploaded it to the Carrick files, then opened a new post. Title: You only get smeared when the truth sticks. In the post, I wrote about projection, about fear, about how people cover rot with worship songs and call it sanctified. The post went live. Comments came quickly. They tried this with my sister. My father did the same thing. Still wears the deacon pin. If they're lying about you, it's because you're close to the vein. One comment stopped me for a moment. If they're still lying about you, it means you're still a threat to what they hide. I liked that one. Evening came fast. The town's bonfire glowed against the gray. I showed up. No one expected me to. People glanced. Whispers hissed through the crowd like steam. Mira stood near the cider table, eyes locked on the flames. Gregory wasn't there. Kids laughed near the fire pit, tossing scraps of wood into the blaze. A boy, maybe 9 or 10, threw in a rolled poster. It unfurled just enough to catch the edge of the flame before folding in on itself. I recognized the image. Livia's photo, from the bulletin board. Someone had taken it down. No one claimed it. I watched it burn. They can torch what they pin up, I thought, but they can't erase what she wrote. I turned and walked away without a word. Back at the guest house where I was staying, I logged into the blog again. Another notification. Private message from a church elder. You're not the only Carrick that left pieces behind. I returned to Miller's Hollow under a gray sky and a silence I hadn't missed. The van from youth services idled 2 blocks from the church. I asked the caseworker to stay put. I wouldn't be long. The shed out back still stood, but barely. Smoke stains curled up its sides like black fingers. The roof had caved. A scorched Bible lay near the steps, its pages curled, unreadable. Beside it, half buried in ash, I found something I recognized, Livia's journal. The second one, the one I never knew she'd started. It was mostly gone, burned beyond saving, but the back cover had held. The ink barely visible, but still there. One day, someone will call the fire what it really is, survival. I took a picture of it, uploaded it that night to the Carrick files with no caption but one. Some stories end in silence. Ours ends with proof. I didn't come back to bury them. I came to bury who they said I was. A few days later, Becca Dean reached out. Would you be willing to speak? Privately, at the trauma seminar. I said yes. At the event, I didn't say names. I didn't speak in anger. I spoke about legacy, about manipulation dressed up as tradition, about stories twisted by fear and passed down like scripture. When I finished, an older man stood up. My daughter went through something like this, he said. She didn't make it. Another woman leaned forward and whispered, You reminded me why I left my church too. I didn't cry, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking when I sat back down. I texted Deacon one word. Spoken. He replied, Heard. The next morning, I walked into the post office with an envelope. No return address. Just one recipient. Gregory Carrick. Inside wasn't hate, no threats. Just a copy of the first letter I'd written to Missouri Tech. The one Mira never let them read. I added a verse, handwritten at the bottom. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. He'd read it and think it was a peace offering. It wasn't. It was for me. Back in my new apartment, I unpacked slowly. Small place, thin walls. But it didn't smell like bleach or burn. On my desk, I laid out the only things I kept. The broken lunch bell. The disconnected camera. A photo of Livia, unburned this time, and the half-charred cover of her journal. I stared at the bell. It hadn't rung since I left. No one rings for me anymore, I said. And that's a good thing. I picked up a black marker and walked to the mailbox in the lobby. I crossed out my last name, wrote only one word, Thorn. Sometimes peace doesn't come wrapped in forgiveness. Sometimes it's just the quiet that follows when the yelling finally stops. Some families don't heal. Some truths don't belong in church halls. And leaving doesn't mean hate. Sometimes it just means surviving long enough to be heard. Later that night, I logged into the blog. One message waited. I'm Elias. I found your letter. I think I'm ready to know more. I stared at the screen, and for the first time since I ran, I felt something I couldn't name, but it was warm.